Okay, so are you ready to really dive into this whole transhumanism thing?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so we're diving into Transcending Homo Sapiens by Vikas Cohen V. And it's going to be a wild ride. We're talking about pushing the boundaries of what it even means to be human, brain computer interfaces, genetic engineering, immortality even.
Right.
And the crazy thing is a lot of this isn't even sci-fi anymore. We're talking about tech that actually exists.
Yeah, and that's what makes Cohen's take on it so fascinating, right? He doesn't present transhumanism as this brand new thing, but more like the latest version of this age-old human desire to, break free from our limits, to evolve.
Okay.
He even ties it back to ancient myths about immortality and superhuman powers. It's like our ancestors were already kind of dreaming of this stuff way back when.
I like that. It's like we've always been fascinated by the idea of becoming more than we are. But it's way more than just dreaming now, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about gene editing with CRISPR. I mean, that's modifying the human genome, and that's happening right now.
It's a game changer, that's for sure. CRISPR is like having this incredibly precise tool to edit the very building blocks of life.
It's mind-blowing when you really think about it.
And then you've got things like Neuralink and these other projects developing brain-computer interfaces. We could be controlling machines with our thoughts pretty soon. It's wild.
It's like something out of a movie, right? Imagine downloading information directly to your brain or controlling a prosthetic limb with your mind.
Yeah.
It's incredible, but also kind of scary, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Cohen doesn't shy away from the potential downsides. One of the biggest ones, I think, is the risk of creating even greater inequality.
Right, who gets to benefit from all of this?
Exactly. Imagine a world where only the rich can afford to enhance themselves, making them healthier, smarter, longer-lived than everyone else. That creates a whole new kind of class system, right?
Yeah, almost like a genetic divide, those who are enhanced and those who aren't. It's a recipe for disaster, really. And then there's AI, right? What happens when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence?
Right. Do we even understand what we'd be creating?
It's a question that keeps coming up. So with all this talk about enhancement and pushing boundaries, what exactly are we talking about when we say transhumanism?
Okay, so for Cohen, transhumanism is all about using tech to fundamentally transform the human condition. It goes beyond just fixing what's wrong with us or making our lives a little bit easier. We're talking about eliminating diseases, reversing aging, maybe even merging with machines to create new forms of consciousness.
Whoa, hold on. Merging with machines. Is he serious?
He's definitely serious. And he says it's happening faster than we realize.
That's a lot to take in. I mean, what would that kind of future even look like? Would it be good or bad?
Honestly, it could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Cohen explores both possibilities, the utopian and the dystopian.
Okay, so how does he see it playing out?
On the one hand, he says transhumanism could lead to a fairer world where everyone has access to these amazing enhancements. Imagine a world without disease, a world where everyone could live longer, healthier lives.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
Right. But then there's the flip side, the possibility that these technologies could be used to create even greater inequality and suffering.
So it's not really about the technology itself, but how we choose to use it.
Exactly. It's about the choices we make today and the ethical frameworks we put in place to guide the development and implementation of these powerful technologies.
That makes sense. We can't just focus on what's possible without thinking about what's desirable, what kind of future we actually want to live in. But all this talk about merging with machines and transforming humanity, it makes you wonder, what even is human anymore?
Right. Where do we draw the line?
Does Cohen talk about that?
He dives right into it. He says that transhumanism forces us to reconsider our very definition of what it means to be human.
Okay, so then how does he define it? What does it mean to be human in this new world he's describing?
Well, that's the big question, and I don't think there are any easy answers. But for Cohen, it's all about pushing the boundaries, challenging our assumptions, and being open to the possibility that what it means to be human might be much more fluid and expansive than we ever imagined.
Okay, so, we're not just evolving physically, but also in terms of our understanding of ourselves.
Exactly, and that's what makes this whole conversation so fascinating and also, a little bit terrifying.
Totally. So where do we even begin to unpack all of this? What specific technologies does Cohen focus on?
Well, one area he spends a lot of time on is brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. He talks about how BCIs could be used to enhance our cognitive abilities in ways we can barely imagine today.
Like how?
We're talking about boosting memory, enhancing learning, even merging our minds with machines to create a new form of hybrid consciousness.
Hold on, did you say merging our minds with machines? Like our thoughts and feelings would be intertwined with artificial intelligence.
That's the idea. It sounds like science fiction, but Cohen argues that it could become reality sooner than we think. He talks about research on transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is a non-invasive way to stimulate specific parts of the brain. And it's already showing promise in enhancing learning and memory.
So it's like giving your brain a turbo boost.
Yeah, exactly. But it does make you wonder, where do we draw the line between natural ability and technological enhancement?
It's a good question. What does it even mean to have a natural mind in a world where we can just upgrade our brains like we upgrade our phones?
Right. It challenges our whole understanding of what it means to be human. And that's why Cohen keeps stressing the importance of careful regulation and ethical guidelines as we develop these powerful technologies.
It's like we're walking a tightrope between incredible potential and terrifying risk.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
We have to think about the potential downsides, like what happens if these technologies are used for malicious purposes. Imagine someone hacking into your neural implant and stealing your thoughts or memories. Or even controlling your actions.
Okay, now that's just creepy. It's like something out of a dystopian novel.
It is pretty unsettling, right? And it highlights the importance of security and privacy as we become more reliant on these technologies. We have to make sure that our minds remain our own.
Absolutely. But it's not just our minds that could be transformed, right? Cohen also delves into the world of biotechnology and how it's changing our physical bodies.
Oh yeah, biotechnology is huge. CRISPR is just the beginning. Cohen explores all sorts of advancements, like nanobots that could repair damage at a cellular level, stem cell therapies that could regenerate tissues and organs, and even the possibility of slowing down or reversing aging.
Wait, reversing aging? Is that even possible?
It's an area of active research. Cohen talks about techniques like telomere extension, which focuses on protecting the ends of our chromosomes that shorten as we age. It's like hitting the reset button on the aging process.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like we're on the verge of unlocking the secrets of aging itself. But it makes you wonder, are we ready for a world where people could potentially live for centuries?
Right. How would that change our society, our values, our understanding of life and death? These are the questions Cohen wants us to think about.
It's a lot to process. It seems like this whole transhumanism thing is about more than just technological advancements. It's about redefining what it means to be human.
Exactly. And it's about making sure that as we evolve, we do so consciously and ethically with a clear understanding of the risks and benefits.
So it's not just about what we can do, but what we should do.
Right. What kind of future are we trying to create? And are we ready for the consequences? Those are questions we all need to be asking ourselves.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But what about this idea of post-humanism that Cohen mentions? How does that fit into all of this?
So post-humanism kind of takes a step back and asks, what if humans aren't the most important thing in the universe?
Whoa, okay. That's a big question.
Right. It's a humbling thought. But post-humanism suggests that maybe there are other forms of intelligent life out there, or maybe we'll create them through AI or synthetic biology.
So it's not just about enhancing humans, it's about acknowledging the possibility of other forms of intelligence, other ways of being.
Exactly. And it makes you think, if humans aren't the end-all be-all of existence, then what does that mean for our place in the grand scheme of things?
That's a pretty profound question. How does Cohen answer it?
He doesn't necessarily provide a definitive answer, but he uses post-humanism as a lens to examine the potential consequences of our actions. It's about recognizing that we're not just shaping the future of humanity, we're shaping the future of intelligence itself.
Wow, I've never thought about it like that before. It's like zooming out from our human-centered view of the universe and realizing that there might be a much bigger picture unfolding.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole conversation so exciting and also a little bit scary, right? We're on the edge of something completely new, something we can barely even imagine.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about. But before we go any further down this rabbit hole, let's take a closer look at some of the specific technologies Cohen explores and how they might play out in the future.
Yeah, let's get into the details.
Starting with this whole idea of immortality. Does Cohen really believe that transhumanism could lead to eternal life?
He does. And he lays out several paths that could lead to radically extended lifespans, potentially even indefinitely.
Definitely. Like forever.
That's the idea. He talks about telomere extension, which we touched on earlier, and how it could slow down or reverse aging at a cellular level.
Okay, so that's about extending our biological lifespans. What about this other idea of digital immortality?
So digital immortality is about uploading your consciousness to a digital realm. It's like creating a backup of your mind that can exist even after your physical body dies.
Okay, that's where I start to lose it. Uploading your consciousness. What does that even mean? And how would it work?
It's a pretty mind-bending concept, right? Basically, the idea is to create a digital replica of your mind with all your memories, thoughts, and even your personality. And this digital replica, you could potentially live forever in a virtual world or even in a synthetic body.
Hold on, so you're telling me that one day we could potentially transfer our minds into robot bodies and live forever? That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It does sound pretty wild, but Cohen argues that it's a real possibility and one that we need to start taking seriously.
Okay, but even if it is possible, should we do it? I mean, is that really living?
Right. What are the ethical implications of creating a digital afterlife?
It's a big question. Does Cohen even try to answer it?
He does. He talks about how digital immortality could fundamentally change our understanding of life and death, and even the meaning of life itself.
Okay, now my head is really spinning. This is a lot to take in.
I know, right? But it's exciting, too. We're talking about pushing the very boundaries of what it means to be human. And who knows, maybe someday we'll look back on these conversations and laugh about how primitive our understanding of life and consciousness used to be.
I kind of doubt we'll be laughing about any of this anytime soon. But okay, let's move on to something a little less existential. You mentioned earlier that Cohen sees a connection between transhumanism and space exploration. That seems like a bit of a jump. Can you explain?
Sure. So Cohen believes that transhumanism is essential if we want to become a truly spacefaring species.
Okay, so how does he see that playing out?
Well, he argues that our current human bodies are just not built for the harsh realities of space. We're too vulnerable to radiation, too dependent on Earth's gravity and atmosphere.
So we need to upgrade our bodies to survive in space.
Exactly. He talks about using genetic engineering to make ourselves more resistant to radiation, or even to adapt to different gravitational pulls.
It's like we're talking about engineering humans specifically for space travel.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And it raises all sorts of ethical questions, right?
It makes you wonder, are we still human if we're modifying ourselves to that extent?
That's a big question, and one that Cohen grapples with throughout the book. But he also points out that humans have always adapted to different environments here on Earth. Think about people who live at high altitudes or in the Arctic. They've evolved different physiological traits to survive in those environments.
So he's saying that transhumanism is just an extension of that natural human adaptability.
Exactly. It's about pushing the limits of what our bodies are capable of, exploring the full potential of human evolution.
It's both exciting and a little bit scary, isn't it? But it's not just about the physical challenges of space, right? There's also the psychological aspect to consider. How do we prepare our minds for the isolation and confinement of space travel?
That's where Cohen's exploration of brain-computer interfaces gets really interesting. He talks about how BCIs could be used to create virtual environments for astronauts, simulating the sights, sounds, and even the social interactions of Earth.
That would be amazing. It's like bringing a little piece of home with you on your journey through the cosmos.
Exactly. And he takes it a step further. He suggests that BCIs could be used to create a kind of shared consciousness among astronauts, allowing them to communicate and collaborate more seamlessly, even across vast distances.
Whoa, a shared consciousness. That sounds intense. Is that even possible?
Cohen seems to think so. He believes that as our understanding of the brain and consciousness advances, we might be able to create technologies that blur the lines between individual minds, allowing us to connect and communicate on a whole new level.
That's both fascinating and a little bit creepy, right? It makes you wonder about the implications for individuality and autonomy when you start merging minds like that.
It's definitely a mind-bending concept,
Yeah.
and one that comes with a lot of ethical considerations.
It seems like every time we delve deeper into these transhumanist ideas, we uncover more questions than answers.
That's the nature of exploring the unknown. And that's what makes this conversation so important.
Okay, before my brain melts down from all this mind-bending discussion, can we get back to something a bit more concrete? You mentioned that Cohen talks about the potential for transhumanism to lead to a new world order. What does he mean by that?
So Cohen argues that as technology increasingly connects us globally, the traditional model of nation-states might become obsolete.
You mean we could eventually move beyond the idea of individual countries and become one unified global civilization?
Precisely. He envisions a future where a single, unified global government could more effectively address global challenges like climate change and resource depletion.
A single world government. It's an interesting idea, but I can see how it could be pretty controversial. What about the potential for abuse of power? And what about cultural diversity? Would that be lost in a homogeneous global society?
Those are valid concerns, and Cohen acknowledges them. He stresses that any global governing body would need to be democratic, transparent, and accountable to the people it represents. And he emphasizes the importance of preserving cultural diversity, even within a unified global framework.
So it's about finding a balance between unity and diversity, between global cooperation and individual freedom.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of dataism comes in. Remember, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, you described it as a philosophy that views everything, including humans, as data processing systems. It's like the whole universe is one big computer program, and we're all just data points.
You got it. And according to dataism, as AI becomes more sophisticated, it might actually be better equipped than humans to make certain decisions, like governing societies or managing resources.
Okay, now that's a little unsettling. Are you suggesting that AI could eventually take over the world?
I'm just presenting the idea, but it's a question that dataism raises. If AI becomes so intelligent that it surpasses human capabilities, then what role do we play in the future? Do we embrace a future where machines are making the decisions? Or do we try to maintain some level of human control? These are questions that Cohen explores in the context of this new world order.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. This whole transhumanism thing is about so much more than just technology. It's about our values, our beliefs, and our vision for the future of humanity.
I agree. It challenges us to examine our place in the world and our relationship with technology in a whole new light.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, but before we wrap up, I have one more question that's been nagging at me. With all this talk about enhancing humans and potentially creating new forms of intelligence, are we essentially playing God?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that has no easy answers.
So how does Cohen approach this question? Does he think we're playing God?
He doesn't provide a definitive answer.
Yeah.
Instead, he presents both sides of the argument. On one hand, he acknowledges that we're gaining the ability to manipulate life itself in ways that were once unimaginable. With technologies like CRISPR, we can literally edit the building blocks of life.
And that does feel pretty godlike, doesn't it?
It does. But on the other hand, Cohen also reminds us that we're still bound by the laws of nature. We might be able to tinker with those laws, but we can't escape them entirely.
So it's about finding a balance between pushing the boundaries of what's possible and respecting the limits of what it means to be human.
Exactly. And it's about having these conversations, grappling with the ethical dilemmas, and making sure that as we venture into uncharted territory, we do so thoughtfully and responsibly.
You're right. These are conversations that we can't afford to ignore. So where do we go from here? What's the next step in this transhumanist journey?
Well, that's what we'll be exploring in more depth next time.
It sounds like we have a lot more to discuss, so please join us again next time for part 2 of our deep dive into Transcending Homo Sapiens.
So last time we were talking about, the bigger picture of transhumanism, right? Like, what it could mean for humanity in the long run.
Right, the potential benefits and also some pretty mind-blowing possibilities like digital immortality and merging our minds with machines.
Yeah, exactly. But now I think it's time to get real for a second and talk about the potential downsides. Because, let's be honest, not everything about this transhumanist future is going to be sunshine and roses.
That's the thing, right? It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all this new technology.
Totally.
But we have to be honest about the risks, too. What could go wrong?
Well, one of the biggest concerns Cohen brings up is that these technologies could actually worsen inequality.
Okay, in what way?
Imagine a world where only the wealthy can afford gene editing to eliminate diseases or enhance their cognitive abilities.
So, instead of a wealth gap, we end up with a genetic gap. Your DNA determines your place in society.
Exactly. And it's not just about access to enhancements, it's also about discrimination. What if employers start requiring genetic screenings for certain jobs? Or insurance companies charge higher premiums based on your genetic predisposition?
It's like all the existing inequalities in our world, but amplified by technology?
Exactly. And then there are the ethical dilemmas surrounding brain-computer interfaces. If we're merging our minds with machines, what happens to our privacy?
It's like you were saying earlier about someone potentially hacking into your neural implant. That's scary stuff.
Right. And it's not just about individual privacy. What if someone hacks into a network of interconnected minds? Or takes control of critical infrastructure that relies on BCIs? The consequences could be catastrophic.
Okay, so we need to be thinking about security and privacy from the ground up as we develop these technologies. But even if we manage to address those concerns, there's still the question of human autonomy.
Right. Like, what does it mean to be free in a world where our thoughts and actions could potentially be manipulated by external devices?
It's a mind-boggling question, and I don't know if there are any easy answers. But it seems like we need to at least be having these conversations.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking about these ethical implications now before it's too late.
So what's the solution? Do we just stop developing these technologies altogether?
I don't think that's realistic or even desirable. These technologies have the potential to do a lot of good in the world.
I agree.
But we have to be smart about how we develop and implement them. We need strong ethical guidelines, careful regulation, and open public discourse about the potential risks and benefits.
So it's not about abandoning progress, it's about steering it in the right direction.
Exactly. And it's not just about preventing the negative, it's also about actively shaping the future we want to create. We need to start thinking now about the kind of world we want to live in, the kind of humans we want to be, and how these technologies can help us get there.
It's a lot of responsibility, and I have to admit it's a little daunting. But okay, let's say we manage to navigate these ethical minefields and develop these technologies responsibly. Where do we go from there? How does Cohen see transhumanism playing out on a larger scale?
Well, one area where he sees huge potential is in space exploration.
Space exploration. We were just talking about the risks of AI taking over the world, and now we're talking about blasting off to Mars.
It might seem like a jump, but Cohen argues that transhumanism is essential if we want to become a truly spacefaring species.
Okay, I'll bite. So how does he see that playing out?
Well, he says our current human bodies are, like, way too fragile for the kind of long-duration space travel we're talking about. Radiation, low gravity, it all takes a toll.
Yeah, it's not exactly a walk in the park out there, so we'd need some serious upgrades to make it work.
Exactly. And Cohen believes transhumanism could provide those upgrades. He talks about using gene editing to make us more resistant to radiation, stronger bones, maybe even tweaking our respiratory systems for different atmospheres.
Oh, so we're talking about custom designing humans for space, like engineering a whole new kind of astronaut.
It's a wild idea, right? And of course, it raises a bunch of ethical questions.
Yeah, like at what point are we not even human anymore, if we're basically engineering ourselves to be something else entirely?
It's a slippery slope, for sure. Cohen talks about that, how even bringing it up makes some people uncomfortable. But he also points out that humans have always adapted to different environments. He uses the example of, like, people who live in the Himalayas. They've evolved to thrive at high altitudes where most of us would struggle. So in a way, this is just taking that natural adaptation process and, giving it a technological boost.
I see what you mean. It's like we're taking control of our own evolution.
Exactly. And for Cohen, space exploration is like the ultimate testing ground for human adaptability. Can we hack our own biology to survive and thrive beyond Earth? It's a question that really captures the spirit of transhumanism, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's a pretty bold vision. But it's not just about our physical limitations, is it? Space travel also takes a huge mental toll. The isolation, the confinement, being so far from everything you know.
Totally. And that's where Cohen's ideas about brain-computer interfaces come back in.
Okay, how so?
Well, he talks about using BCIs to create virtual environments for astronauts, almost like a mental escape from the confines of their spacecraft.
Yeah.
They could put on a headset and be transported back to a beach on Earth or a forest or wherever they find calming.
It'd be like a virtual vacation from space.
Exactly. It could be crucial for maintaining mental health on those long-duration missions.
It's like they'd be bringing a little piece of Earth with them wherever they go.
Right. But Cohen doesn't stop there. He even talks about using BCIs to create a kind of shared consciousness among the astronauts. So they're all linked together mentally, working together as a single unit.
Whoa, a shared consciousness. That's even more intense than virtual reality. Isn't that kind of messing with the very essence of what it means to be an individual?
It definitely blurs the lines, right? And Cohen doesn't shy away from those ethical concerns. But he also points out the potential benefits, especially when it comes to things like teamwork and communication. Imagine a crew of astronauts working together with perfect synchronicity, their minds all linked as one.
It'd be like they were all reading each other's minds.
In a way, yes. But of course, that level of interconnectedness comes with its own set of challenges and risks. It's a trade-off that we need to consider very carefully.
Yeah, it seems like with every potential benefit of transhumanism, there's also a potential downside. It's like walking a tightrope between progress and potential disaster.
It's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And it underscores the need for thoughtful, ethical considerations every step of the way.
Well said. But we've only scratched the surface of Cohen's vision for transhumanism in space. He doesn't stop at just exploring our own solar system, does he?
Oh, definitely not. He takes it a giant leap further and talks about interstellar travel.
Interstellar, like
Yeah.
traveling to other stars, but those distances are mind-boggling. Even with our fastest spacecraft, it would take tens of thousands of years to reach even the closest stars.
Exactly. And that's why Cohen argues that we need transhumanism to make interstellar travel a reality.
So what's the solution? Build even faster spaceships.
Well, faster spaceships would definitely help, but even if we could achieve, like, a significant fraction of the speed of light, we're still talking about journeys that could last for decades, even centuries. So we need humans who can survive those journeys.
Okay, so now we're back to extending the human lifespan, potentially indefinitely.
Exactly. And that's where things like telomere extension, gene editing to slow down aging, even uploading our consciousnesses into more durable forms could come into play.
So to conquer the vast distances between stars, we need to conquer our own mortality. That's a pretty profound thought.
It is, isn't it? And it gets to the heart of what Cohen is trying to do with this book. He's pushing us to think beyond the limitations of our current understanding of what's possible, to imagine a future where humans are no longer bound by the constraints of our current biology or technology. It's a future where we become something truly different. Something more.
It's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. And honestly, I don't know if I'm ready for it, but I do know that we need to be having these conversations.
I completely agree. Whether we embrace it or fear it, transhumanism is coming. And the choices we make today will determine what that future looks like.
That's a powerful message to end on, and it's something for all of us to consider as we grapple with these complex and rapidly evolving technologies.
It's been a fascinating journey diving into these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this incredible deep dive into transcending Homo sapiens. Until next time, keep those minds open and keep asking the big questions.